is the Pegasus Podcast, presented by Night Sports Now. UCF news, views, and a few hot takes. Now, here are your hosts, Bailey Go Knights Adams and Christian Charge On Simmons.
Welcome into episode 250. Be sure you're following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. You can also email us at PegasusPodcast@ksn@gmail.com. Episode 250, Christian, and our last episode of 2024.
Do you want to know something awesome?
What? That I brought champagne for the occasion?
No, that you saying episode 250 was me remembering that this is episode 250. Had no idea.
Someone didn't read the outline.
Forgot. Do you really have champagne? I didn't read the outline. I'm looking at it now. Hey, we did it. 250 episodes.
250. Woo! I also mentioned it at the end of last week's podcast. And although I don't know, last week's podcast was before Christmas and before just, I don't know, a lot of stuff that I was doing. So it doesn't feel like it was only... Does it last Monday? It was last Monday.
It was last Monday. And let me clarify. I've known leading up to this it was episode 250, and I've thought of it multiple times between the last episode and now. It's just today we went to record, and I sat down and did not think about it being 250, and it is.
And I brought champagne for me. I'm not even going to drink it. It was just a prop.
For us, I'm going to drink champagne through the screen. That's great.
It would have been better if you would have not remembered it was 250 and I just actually popped the champagne and just sprayed it all.
Scare the hell out of me. This is really good that I remembered it now, though, because it would have been way worse if I remembered it when I was posting the episode later and typing in 250 and being like, oh, right, we probably should have said something about that.
Yeah. Well,
250,
man. You didn't prepare birthday music?
I didn't prepare birthday music, but, that's just life.
Maybe 300.
Maybe 300, guys. This is the other issue with me forgetting this one in particular is because this is our last big milestone for a very long time, because I don't think 300 is that big of a deal, right?
I think it is.
But I think 250, when you think of I don't know, I feel like a 25th anniversary is typically a bigger deal than a 30th anniversary in life.
Is it?
I know that sounds dumb when I'm saying it, but I feel like that's right. I don't know. I feel like that's right. I feel like our next very big one would be 500.
No, I don't like thinking about that.
That won't be till 2027, 2028. You're fine.
Yeah. That's no.
But hey, to all of you who've been listening to us, thanks. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great.
We've done 250 of these. We've technically done more because the emergency episodes aren't numbered, but we've been here a very long time. Too long, some are saying. But here we are.
Well, so actually, no, our next milestone will actually be the Pegasus Podcast's birthday.
That's right, which is in 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
What is that? Our fourth birthday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because it was January of 21.
Birthday.
4 years old. God, can you believe that we're setting this podcast in kindergarten next year? That's crazy.
It's gonna get a bunch of fights.
I do really feel like this podcast is like having a kid, which is probably since I've never had a kid why I can feel comfortable saying that.
An insane thing to say.
This thing that we've nurtured and cared for, and it's getting older and getting old.
That is an insane thing to say. And anyone listening with kids will probably yell at you now.
Did I just offend every listener we have with kids for me saying hopping on to, talk about UCF for an hour once a week is the same as
with
raising
my friend.
a child.
With my friend, yeah.
Yeah, we're doing it
same
together.
as raising a child.
Kid.
I don't know. I don't know if that's the same. But
this is also coming off the heels of I saw you were in town a few days ago. We went to a Magic game together. Go Magic! They lost. It was painful. I hate Heat fans more than life. And I think at one point we had a conversation where I flat out said that I think I'd be a bad parent, and now I've turned this into 4 days later and me being like, the podcast is basically my child. So,
so are you a bad parent to the podcast? I don't know.
I think I'm a great parent to the. No, because I just forgot the.
You
podcast.
Forgot his birthday.
It's like forgetting a kid's birthday. Well, no, because the real birthday. This is like forgetting a kid's. I don't know, recital or something like your kids.
Graduate. Well, that's still bad. Still not good.
I'll get over it.
Okay. Yeah, the podcast will get over it. Forgetting episode 250. I won't, though. I'm the other parent that will always remember and remind you of it. The
best part wasn't just me forgetting. That was the most subdued champagne interaction I've ever seen in my life. You just go, I have champagne for 250.
Well, it's fitting for the podcast, I think. I was going to say it's not even my champagne. I mean, it is. It's just not only mine. It's my trivia team collectively won it. So saving it for when we do something. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. But all right. Podcast time. 250. We're going to talk some transfer portal additions, all on the defensive side of the ball. And then we'll do some UCF resolutions, wrapping up 2024 with resolutions as one does. Are you a New Year's resolution person ever? I feel like that's a no.
Yeah, I don't think so. I feel like when I was younger, like kind of like when I still believed in like the Easter Bunny and stuff.
Oh,
It was
what
more
are you doing now? What are you doing right now?
what? I mean, the Easter Bunny's real, obviously, but I just, I feel like when I was younger, I cared about that more, like resolutions type stuff. But now I feel like I've gotten to the age where we've learned that like no one ever like. Do you know anyone who actually follows through on their resolutions? I don't think I know anyone in my life who does that.
I don't know. Like, it just depends. Like, I've never really been a big resolution person. Last year I did like a bingo card of like a bunch of goals that I wanted to hit, and I actually did get bingo.
Nice.
Some of them were very controllable things, and it involved my free space, I think, which was to turn 26. So, me living to my birthday got me a space on that bingo card. So I don't know, I'll probably do something like that again.
Podcast we've ever done, we've covered forgetting our own 250th episode and not believing resolutions matter or are real. So we're crushing it so far.
No, they're real. If you do it,
yeah, they are real. No, I think if you're listening to this and you're a person who really lives by your resolutions, that's great. If you're a person listening to this and you make resolutions every year and don't follow them, do better.
Yikes. This is horrible. We're ending the year on a horrible note right now. I don't like this, but all right.
I'm saying that as a person. That's why I stopped doing it, because when I was younger, I would always come up with crazy stuff like this year.
So instead of doing better, you were just like, I'm not going to do it anymore.
I'm just not going to try. Yeah.
Yeah. Just either, don't even try. You'll never be disappointed. We'll come back to that later. Maybe. We'll see. Well, let's talk transfer portal. UCF's added 7 more players since the last time we talked a week ago, and they are all on the defensive side of the ball. I'll run through the names, and we'll talk a little bit about each of them, but the first one is Oklahoma linebacker Phil Pachotti. Then there's Virginia Tech linebacker Kelly Lawson, FAU defensive back Philip Dunham, Georgia Tech defensive tackle Horace Lockett Jr., Syracuse defensive back safety Jaden Gould, and Syracuse cornerback Jaden Bellamy. The two are best friends, and LSU defensive back Jair Brown. So let's start with Pachotti. The Oklahoma linebacker redshirted and didn't play due to an injury in 2023, didn't play due to an injury in 2024, former 3-star in the 2023 class out of IMG Academy, originally from Pennsylvania. Thoughts?
Yeah, this was one of those ones that I've kind of done a bit of a about face on from when he first when UCF was first tied to him, because this is the classic does not work transfer edition, right? The guy who was at a Power 4, like a blue blood, and never played, and now is transferring down. I mean, I don't know how many podcasts we did in like 2021 and 2022 with guys like that, like DeMarcus Bowman. You remember Fred Davis? Big Fred Davis guys for like a week on this podcast, and it just doesn't work out. But then I started reading more from the Oklahoma side of things, reading some articles about him and learning more about the situation. And I'm kind of in on this now. And basically what happened with him was he was in a weird space where he was a 3-star out of high school, but he went to IMG, and he was very, very, very sought after coming out of high school. He had a lot of blue bloods who were very interested in him. He obviously ended up at Oklahoma, and Oklahoma was super high on him and thought he was going to be one of their like main defensive players into the future, someone they could actually like build a defense around. And he suffered a season-ending injury that cost him 2023, and then another that cost him 2024. So, and now he's, coming into UCF, which I would not blame him for wanting to leave Oklahoma. It sounded like from the Oklahoma side of things, there was a little bit of disappointment he's leaving. It's just kind of that shrugging your shoulders of this just hasn't worked. You're not healthy here, and I get why you want to change the scenery, whatever. But I don't know. It's if he can stay healthy, there's no reason to believe that all that upside all these major programs saw isn't still there.
Yeah, no, I hope so. I am not really feeling anything about this one. I think I'm just kind of in wait and see mode, and I think that's what I'm trying to do more so than anything with a lot of these transfers this year, because we've done this in the past, however many years now, where we analyze everyone. We're still going to analyze them because that's what we do with the podcast, but I don't want to feel like I'm getting too high or too low on any of these guys, because I don't know. It would be nice if the upside shows up, but it also could be one of those where it just doesn't work out. I don't know.
I'm trying to stop making declarative statements about the transfers, because I feel like that's where we've gotten in trouble in the past. All right, my New Year's resolution that that means I'm going to break it. That means I'm going to spend all this offseason shouting things like, Phil Pachotti is the best player, and he's like Terrence Lewis, but he'll play. I don't know. I'll just say crazy stuff. But I don't know. I feel like, and he's
like Terrence Lewis, but he'll play.
I really do think that, I mean, you forget how when we started the podcast, it was the off season going into 2021. And that was the first like real portal off season. So it was kind of learning in real time. Like that first off season, every player that UCF got, like everyone's and this wasn't like an our podcast thing. It was an all college football fans thing, is everyone's brain would work like this. You would be like, we really need a left guard. And then your team signs a left guard. And we'd go, great, they signed a left guard. That's no longer a concern. And we just do that for the whole roster. So then the season rolls around and every team is like, well, we filled all the needs. We've never been able to do this before. This is so cool. We're going to go undefeated. And then it's like, it turns out the left guard sucks. And it's just been that learning bit by bit every offseason. So yeah, we don't know about any of these guys. And honestly, I don't think UCF knows either. That's kind of the sort of funny part of this, is it's not like there is some secret answer out there that we just don't have access to. It's UCF will evaluate a guy, say, we like him, we like his tape, we like what we've heard about him, let's bring him in. Sometimes they get to spring ball and, he's just not good. And that's the way it goes. But we do the best we can. And I hope UCF is doing the best they can, hopefully better than they have done in past portal cycles, most recently, the last two of them in particular.
Yeah, and another thing I'll say about Picciotti, but like right as we're going to move into another linebacker and Kelly Lawson, is like they need linebackers. So I am not going to turn my nose up at a former highly sought after linebacker who, has only really not lived up to the potential because of injury. Like that's kind of, what the injuries were, and like it's kind of just like sometimes it's just bad luck stuff. Like I don't know. Like if he can stay healthy, it might all work out, which would be lovely.
Yeah, because literally, I mean, that's the other thing too. Is like, are they even done adding at linebacker? Do you think?
Probably not. If they can help it, like if they can add more, they will. I think. I don't know.
Because God, I mean, who is back now? Is it just Andrew Harris, basically?
Yeah, I mean, from what we've heard about or seen, even on like special teams, because Troy Ford is there, but we haven't heard or seen anything about him. I think TJ Bullard is still around, but I don't think he hasn't really played much either. Yeah, there's not.
I mean, so it's like, and that's another thing we have to quantify too, because I don't really want to, is there a reality where Phil Picciotti is playing next year because he's one of 3 viable linebackers, and I'm taking my victory lap of, look, he played, even though it's just because he was like the only option in the room. But I don't know. I think that I don't mind. This was one of those ones where I saw, and I'm like, I don't mind UCF taking that risk. This isn't like a Terrence Lewis type situation where there were serious off-field issues that UCF was kind of looking past because he's really highly rated. This is a guy who has had some bad injury luck, and you're gambling that your strength staff and your program can help him overcome that and help him get onto the field for the first time in his college career.
Yeah.
And another reason I like him, sorry to keep, going back to him, is that he also has 4 years of eligibility, which is pretty hard to find in the portal. So maybe, none of those years turn into anything here, but still not bad to have.
Yeah. It'll be great when he has a really good year and then someone else poaches him and uses his other 3 years of eligibility.
Yeah, I guess maybe I need to stop with the multiple years of eligibility, because it really doesn't. I just keep assuming that's going to get solved soon. There's been talks like once the House settlement is through, that'll be a little less, up in the air as it is now, because the idea is that these like you see now on Twitter, it's not, this guy's committed to UCF, he's signed with UCF, and the idea a lot of people think is that eventually this will turn into they're signing deals that are for multiple years, and and it will probably work similar to European soccer where there will be a buyout. Like it does, like say that Phil Picciotti has a great 2025 for UCF. He's starting linebacker really good, and he signs a 2-year deal with UCF, and at this point in time, that's allowed. That the House settlement is through, whatever, and then you might see something where a year later he leaves, but it's because I don't know, Florida State wanted him and they paid his $350,000 buyout, so UCF gets $350,000 in cash, and he goes. I feel like that would make it better for everyone, because then it's kind of like if you don't follow European soccer, it's this weird thing where when you lose a good player, you're upset that they're gone, but you're also like, we got all this money to go do other stuff with. So it's it'll stop feeling as bad as just losing guys for nothing. Like I think losing like Lee Hunter going to Texas Tech, I think that's a lot more palatable if Texas Tech had to hand UCF $200K or something to make that happen.
Yeah. If it ends up working out that way, that would be such a. I mean, the sport's already transformed completely, but I think that would be an even bigger shift. But
well, that's what I'm trying to not to just. I mean, I told you that we're going to do 10 minutes to 15 minutes on the new portal editions. We're at 15 minutes, and we've done one of them, so this is great. And now I'm derailing the podcast even more. But
yeah,
when fans you see a lot of like doom and gloom fans on Twitter who are just like, college football is ruined. It's this phase we're in has always been a temporary state of existence. It's just been that college football started as an amateur sport 150 years ago. It then spent the last 40 to 50 years pretending to be an amateur sport while very much being a pro sport. And now we're in that 5-ish year transition period of it admitting it's a pro sport and making those adjustments. And it's a messy time, but it's not going to be like this forever. It's honestly already not as bad as it was a couple of years ago. It's getting there. So like literally as recently as last year, we talked about this on our last podcast, that there were no signings. So it's like, it wasn't until they took a class on campus. Like you would have guys commit to UCF from the portal, and a month later, they're like, actually, I changed my mind. And I'm like, what the hell? I forgot about you.
Yeah.
You were a commit. So it's getting better. Just bear with it.
Yeah. Next one is Virginia Tech linebacker Kelly Lawson. He originally was a wide receiver, and he's moved to linebacker. He's 6'6", 220. He's played a couple years, actually 3 years now at Virginia Tech. 2022, he had 23 tackles, a pass breakup, a sack, and a pick six. 2023, he had 80 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, an interception, and a forced fumble. He was an All-ACC honorable mention that year. And then he dealt with some injury issues in 2024. 40 tackles, 4 pass breakups, another interception. Kind of, from what I read, was, his spot on the 2-deep depth chart as he was dealing with the injury was kind of all over the place. And even still, looking at Pro Football Focus and all that and the grades there, they were pretty decent across the board, even as he dealt with those injuries. So that's why this one, like the fact that he's played pretty productively at Virginia Tech, has me more in on this one. But again, we don't know any of this. Like it could all work out for Pachotti and fall flat for Lawson. No one ever knows. But that's why this one I'm looking at, I'm like, okay, there's something more tangible for me to like look at and work with here.
And I don't think it's either or. I mean, like you said, that room is bare as hell. I mean, they need as many guys as they can get. And yeah, you're right that he has multiple years of high-level contributions, which that's not always easy to come by in the portal. And yeah, it's, as you said, it's his reps had shrunk this year due to injuries, due to the linebacker room getting tougher, was what their 247 site reported. So this is the situation where it's a win-win, right? Like maybe his spot isn't there as much at Virginia Tech as he used to be. He can go into a situation at UCF where there is virtually no competition, and hopefully he can secure a starting spot and play and thrive. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know. And this is why I'm trying to caution fans for what next year is going to be. And we're just going to spend all offseason doing that. Is UCF is not in the position from a coaching staff perspective, from a brand perspective, from a money perspective is the big one, to just, they're not just going to go start getting superstars out of the portal. Like this is a rebuilding year. So something like linebackers, it's really where there's no one in the room right now. That is really just find guys who can start and get them in there. It's not like not every pickup is going to be, wow, now that they've got these guys, they're really making a Big 12 title run. It's just try to fill as many holes as you can so next year isn't a disaster. It's pretty much the mode they're in with the roster that the staff inherited. Yeah,
and that's why it's like you said, it doesn't have to be either or. Like both of these guys can start probably. Like I think from what I looked at, I think Lawson played a little bit of middle linebacker, a little bit of weak side linebacker. So there's some versatility there. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for take more linebackers. I don't really care at this
point.
I'm not going to turn many away.
Maybe recruit some out of high school. So Frost, if you're listening, so we don't have to keep doing this every year for the rest of time, which for some reason we still have to keep doing at UCF.
Yeah, it's a cursed position, it feels like. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. So third one is FAU safety Philip Dunham. He is taking an interesting route from Indiana Hoosier to FAU Owl to UCF Knight. Spent 2022 and 23 at Indiana. Appeared in all 12 games in 2022. Appeared in all 12 with 7 starts in 2023. He had 3 interceptions. PFF had him at a 70.3 overall grade with a 67.1 coverage grade. Last year at FAU, after transferring, he had a 72.2 overall grade, 79.2 coverage grade, 3 interceptions. What really I don't think I'll ever understand about PFF's rating system is 79.2 coverage grade is like good. He allowed 6 touchdowns though.
I don't get that.
So
who were the 6 touchdowns against?
Plays.
Just out of curiosity.
I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
Well, never mind. Because I wonder if it was. I mean, they did play some. Well, actually, no. I'm looking at their schedule. They didn't play anybody good this year. Never mind. Wow, FAU's schedule was not good this year. I guess that's why they fired their coach, because they were really bad against a really bad schedule. Yeah, but now that we've talked about how he allowed 6 touchdowns and how bad his team as a whole was, good addition, hopefully. I don't know. It's so funny how there's little portal experiences each offseason that burn me in some way. And the one that, because I should see 3 interceptions and be like, ooh, and why do I see that and not feel anything? What player made me feel that way? Do you remember?
What was his name? Corian Patterson, right?
Corian Patterson, because he led the nation in interceptions and came into UCF, and he wasn't a total bust. We saw that and we're like, whoa, this guy's going to come in and be great. And we kind of ignored how interceptions are kind of a fluky thing. And yeah, it's impressive when players have a lot of them, but there's an element of luck and being in the right place there. And DeCorian sort of capped out as a rotational piece. And so, yeah, I mean, they're rebuilding the secondary, and this is obviously a position where many guys will play. So we'll see, but it's not a bad pickup by any means. I do wonder, UCF's hired a couple off-field personnel from FAU now in those like GM player personnel type roles. And I wonder if that's maybe part of why we saw this too. If this is someone who they felt like was really solid and someone that they thought they could bring over.
And versatility too. I mean, he played both safety positions, free safety and strong safety. I looked it up, who he allowed touchdowns against, if you want that.
Go for it.
Army was one of them.
Very good team.
UConn, who is actually good this year. They go 9-4.
9-win team. Yep.
Yeah.
Which did you see? Did you? Jim Moore, UConn's coach. Did you see his thing today?
No.
He announced that other schools are tampering with their players, which that's what happens at every school. But he did what I think people should take seriously as a threat. He declared that if the coaches keep doing it, he's going to start outing the staffs that are doing it. Like he's just going to declare who they are. And I think that like he would actually do it because you have nothing to lose. So that's kind of funny to monitor.
Yeah. The other three were North Texas. The other three. I missed one here. North Texas, USF, East Carolina were other ones, and I'm missing one somewhere. But point is, there's another one. It was Charlotte. So yeah, all over.
Oh, Charlotte! Wow, now I'm out on him.
I don't know. And again, like that kind of stuff is just because he was credited for it doesn't necessarily mean it was him. But just that was an alarming stat to look at. But
I really you need to
out overall.
I have no idea we just don't know what the situations were on those.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
Yeah. The fourth one, Georgia Tech defensive tackle Horace Lockett Jr. I think somebody that we're both excited about.
Great name.
Big guy, 6'6", 315, great name. Redshirted in 2022, played in 2023, 10 games at nose tackle, 25 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss. Had a hand injury early this past year and didn't play this season for Georgia Tech. I don't know. I think there's a lot of upside here.
Yeah, when you have a guy who, as a redshirt freshman, was already having that kind of production, and a guy who it was sort of the perfect situation for UCF where, you have on paper that he missed this year with injury. It's a hand injury. It's not something like super serious that should impede his ability to play going forward. I mean, this is another example, multiple years of eligibility. I don't know. I'm trying to crack the formula, guys, for how do we find the guy and what do we look for where we know he will be good. And I know there's no way to do that because we got a quarterback who threw for 8,000 yards in the SEC and he wasn't good. But I do think there's a solid combination of not just playing a lot, but playing a lot when you're young and playing a lot for a team that's actually solid. And Horace Lockett checks all of those boxes. Georgia Tech was actually a good program that year. I know because I watched them kill UCF in the Gasparilla Bowl. He played a lot for them. He played well for them, and he was young when he did it. And this is just, and it also is at a position where UCF kind of feels like we already talked about that we were feeling pretty good about the D line. It feels like they're starting to build that might be their one unit that we might see this offseason. It feels like it might be kind of nasty next year. Like they're actually adding a lot of good talent there. And listen, I've said this before. It's like if you gave me two positions on the team that I'm up, two position groups that I'm allowed to make both of those groups elite for UCF, I'd pick quarterback and I'd pick D line. I think those are the two that just those affect both sides of the ball so well. And I'm hopeful they're doing that. So that can make the growing pains of next season a lot, less insane if the D line can be effective up front.
And I almost wonder with him because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Georgia Tech defensive line was really good this year. Every game I watched with them, it seemed like they were all over. And that's just kind of the style they play under Brent Key. So I almost wonder if he injured his hand early on in the season, kind of saw the writing on the wall and was like, all right, I'm, even once I get my hand healthy, I might not have, the same role that I once had or I was thinking I was going to have. So, it's time to go.
That's
Maybe
what
something
I think.
like that.
That's what I think. Because when that's why you see so many guys transfer after they get hurt, because when you're in a situation where you aren't playing because you're injured and guys step up in your place and do well, you might think and know I'm still good enough to play there. But there's also the sense of, are you going to risk it? And if you're Georgia Tech, even you might say, he was really good as a redshirt freshman. Do we want to screw up what we have? And it just becomes one of those things where it's easy to sort of step out. So I think that's a good pickup for UCF. I think there were a lot of teams that were after him too. So that's a very, very good get. He's one of the ones I'm definitely excited for.
Like you said, teams move on quickly. So like you said, it's that. So another one, Syracuse safety, Jaden Gould. He was originally a Scott Frost pickup at Nebraska, I believe, in 2022. Played in 2023 at Syracuse, 19 tackles, 1 interception, 24. He had 10 tackles. Hasn't played a ton. I don't really know what else to say. other than he comes along with somebody he grew up with and is best friends with in Syracuse corner, Jaden Bellamy. So if you want to talk about both these guys together, we can. I don't know. Do you have anything on Gould?
Yeah, I think my main thing on Gould is I think they used him to get Bellamy, and I think that's great for everyone involved. I don't, which again, this is classic, and then Gould will end up being important or something. Whenever you have multiple years of not really playing a ton, I think that kind of signals what it is, especially when it's across multiple schools. But him and Bellamy are like lifelong friends. Apparently, they were teammates in high school and all this stuff. And I think this is probably a situation because on paper it does not make sense. Like Jaden Bellamy is from New Jersey and went Notre Dame to Syracuse. Like there's no connection to UCF here as far as we know. And I've wondered if part of it is just, was UCF the school that was willing to give both him and Gould scholarships, and that's how they landed Bellamy? Because Bellamy is a guy who I think should probably start for UCF next year, who seems like probably the pickup I'm most excited for, other than maybe like the tight end from Maryland.
Yeah, no, I think that's as safe as anything like that is to say at this time of the year, with as much time as there is before the next season. That's probably the safest it can be to say, because he has played a lot. 2023, he had a 72.4 overall grade for Pro Football Focus, pretty good tackling grade, 72.4 coverage, had an interception, 2 pass breakups, no penalties, over 442 snaps, only allowed 19 catches over 260 coverage snaps. And then last year, similar grade, 75.7 overall, good tackling grade, 74.9 in coverage, 226 coverage snaps, 24 receptions allowed over that, 2 picks, 5 pass breakups, only 1 penalty. So a guy who did really well for Syracuse, and I'm easy to be excited about that one.
And we've talked so much about sample size, right? And how that can change things too. And you're talking about a guy who over 2 seasons, over 22 games, has played consistently at a high level, playing very well, making game-changing plays. So that's as close to a layup as I've seen him get at the portal so far.
Yeah, and hopefully it plays out that way. The last one is former Ohio State and former LSU defensive back Jair Brown. He actually saw most of the last 3 years, saw most of his action in 2022 at Ohio State. Played 195 snaps, 168 of those were outside at cornerback, 69.2 overall grade, 83.7 tackling grade. His snaps dipped down in 2023 for whatever reason, 48 snaps. And then he transferred to LSU where he barely played. He 34 snaps. Most of those were at slot corner, and he didn't play overly well there. I don't know if maybe it was a thing where he is not actually a slot cornerback and they tried to fit him there, but I don't know. I don't know about this one. It's more like you need more bodies in the room, and we'll wait and see if he is somebody who emerges. But I'm not overly expecting him to.
Going to go out on a limb and say we're not going to have many Jair Brown conversations. Unfortunately.
Because we talk about tracking this kind of stuff over our however many years, 4 years as a podcast, and every year with the transfer portal, it's like the third school guys, very low hit rate if you're on your third school. Although we just did talk about Dunham, who's on his third school as well. So it depends. It's the
third school guys.
After the first 2,
yes,
that's more the concern.
That's the key point. It's not because like Dylan Gabriel's a third school guy.
If you want to count UCLA, what is he?
That's where I got tripped up in my brain for a second because I forgot about UCLA, which he did enroll at UCLA, but the rule is you have to attend a class, and at the time that was the rule. And I remember that the story at the time was he literally just didn't show up for classes, and UCLA was like, "What the hell's going on?" And then it got announced that he was going to Oklahoma.
So crazy,
classy guy to the end. But I think it really is. It's the transferring down multiple times. If there's a guy who plays well at his first stop and then moves up or goes somewhere else, okay. But it's when it doesn't work out here, so they go somewhere else, and it doesn't work out there, so they go somewhere else. That it's like it's like Timmy McClain, right? Timmy McClain has gone USF to UCF to Arkansas State to Bethune-Cookman. It's just those guys are all kind of. There's literally thousands of those guys circulating through college football right now who. There's someone you still add because if you're UCF, A, you never know. Get them in. Why not? They were highly rated once. And B, you need depth anyway. Bring them in for that at least. It's not like you're looking for only starters here, but it's not someone who, you're overly hyped about or you're really expecting to come in and be a big-time contributor.
It was weird. Earlier, I was looking back at some of the LSU boards when they added him from Ohio State around this time last year, and they were pretty excited about it because there was some stuff. There was something there, it seemed like, early on in his time at Ohio State. But yeah, this year didn't work out at LSU for whatever reason. I think he's a Louisiana guy too, so that had to be disappointing. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if anything can work out here at UCF. But anything else on the 7 defensive transfers? Are we going to get an offensive transfer anytime soon, you think?
They don't need any more. The offense is set. What do you mean? They have
Sure.
an offensive line. They have wide receivers who have never, really played in college, but are there, so they should be totally fine. Chauncey Magwood, who I cannot believe even still had eligibility, hit the portal this week.
What did JP Gilbert say? It was like he was the Deontay Marks. I can't believe this guy was still on the roster award recipient.
Which do we know? So let's chart Chauncey Magwood's time at UCF. Let's just chart it. He comes from Kentucky, I believe, and
sure.
At the time made some comment about it involving the weather was why he was here. He then opts out 4 games into 2023, so he can hit the portal when the season ends. And Gus even announces in a presser like, "Oh, Chauncey's chosen to opt out. Okay, he wasn't playing much, whatever." Then is like, "I'm coming back for 2024." Still didn't really play. At that point, I thought he was just out of eligibility, and then he announced he's hitting the portal. So best of luck to Chauncey Magwood in whatever comes next for him. I have another comment really quickly. We saw a lot of defensive commits this week. We saw linebackers commit. We saw cornerbacks commit. We saw safeties commit. These are all positions that UCF has not publicly hired coaches for. And I'm very surprised we got another. I don't believe we had any coaching news this week, which that doesn't mean guys haven't been hired behind the scenes. UCF still hasn't announced Sean Clark, the O-line coach, who we know is here.
Have they not?
No, they never announced him. So it's like, so there could realistically be other guys who are here that they just, for some reason, I don't know if it's like, I don't know if there's some rule of when a contract is finalized or whatever. I know there's like short form versus long form and all that stuff, but I don't know. I don't know anything, but like, does this make you suspicious that they're having multiple guys commit? I mean, I'm assuming that Grinch is probably going to coach safety, so maybe we can take out safeties there. But I don't know. It makes me a little suspicious that you get multiple guys committing these positions if they don't have a positions coach. I wonder if UCF's got some guys in. They have not.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know. Otherwise, it is just all committing to the defensive coordinator. But I don't know. I don't really know that you guys do that.
Still need a running backs coach, too, and probably a running back.
Yeah, probably.
And a quarterback. Still waiting on a quarterback at some point.
If that's going to happen at any point, I don't know.
Dylan Risk must be watching this all play out and just be like, no way.
He's just rubbing his hands together. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy. All right. Let's do our UCF resolutions for 2025.
Very excited.
We've got resolutions for the fan base, for Scott Frost, for Terry Mohajer, and for ourselves. And we left it pretty open-ended as we usually do. I had a hard time with this kind of, but then figured something out for each of them.
Did you not do the fans one that you texted me earlier?
No, okay. I didn't. I just wanted UCF fans to stop being annoying.
I don't
think that's ever really fair.
I wish I could make my resolution for the fans to stop being annoying, which I don't think is ever going to happen for any fan base in America. So. Yeah,
I don't know. And then when I thought about that one, I was thinking more like UCF fans, please stop embarrassing UCF on a national level with like different national college football conversations or just, I don't know, other things that garner negative attention toward UCF because you've said something dumb.
Have there been examples of that lately? I feel like I haven't seen it as much recently.
Maybe not recently. I don't know. It was just something that was more of a general thought. But
I will say that UCF fans weighing in with crazy things on Twitter and like national spheres has gotten more ridiculous as UCF has gotten worse on the field. Like it was kind of more acceptable to be crazy when UCF was good. It's less so now that UCF is bad. But yeah,
there is every once in a while, and it's maybe not on a national level, but I see UCF fans jump into like arguments or certain things, certain conversations where people, like you say, very easily can just be like, UCF is irrelevant. Shut up. And they kind of really can't say anything back to that because
And I listen, nothing's ever going to happen where UCF fans as a group are going to be tolerable people because it's just not it's not in the nature of any college football fan base. I'm old enough to remember 2018 when UCF had won like 20 games in a row, 21 games in a row. And do you remember what the Navy score was in 2018?
I remember they blew them out. They allowed a garbage time touchdown
to make it 35-24. It's 35-24 because of the garbage time touchdown, and everyone was pissed as hell that UCF did not kill a service academy. So I know wherever UCF is, whether they're 1-11 or 11-1, the fans will find a way to be angry about whatever's going on.
It'll be great. So what is your resolution for the fan base?
Find joys outside of football this fall. is my resolution for the fan base. Guys, this year is going to suck. I would love to be wrong, but man, I do not think this year is going to be fun. The schedule's tough. They have to go on the road 5 times in the Big 12. They're hosting Bill Belichick's North Carolina at home. I mean, the schedule, even Jacksonville State, one of the fake games, is like not all that fake. Jacksonville State won Conference USA this year. I don't think UCF's going to lose that game, but I don't think they're just going to win it 56-0 like they always do in those types of games. And all I'm looking for from 2025 is find your pieces that you're building with, whether that's a quarterback, whether that's young skill talent, whether it's young guys on defense, whatever, just find those guys and find some wins and get ready for 2026. I hope everyone understands that there's just not a path with UCF's resources and the roster situation that Frost has inherited from what was left at the end of the Malzahn era to turn this season into anything other. Like, I think the peak is bowl eligibility. I would be over the moon thrilled if they find a way to get to a bowl, and I just don't think they're going to based on what we know now. So my 2 things on that are, the first is find some things to do outside of UCF football this fall. I'm not saying don't go to the games. Absolutely go to the games. Support your team as you always do. I know that those first couple games will be sold out and there will be a lot of fun, but just find a way that when UCF loses, like 35-13 to Texas Tech or something, to not let that ruin your day and just have something else to enjoy too. And the second thing is, whenever you're feeling down, when UCF is losing their 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th or 9th game of the year, remember that they could be doing all that with Gus as the head coach. Because this rebuild in 2025 being a mess was coming either way. And I think that's a big part of why Gus was ready to bail, because that was just the situation they'd fallen into. And at least this is the start of something new and not a whole season of us going, oh my God, when is Gus going to get fired? And then us having to do the rebuild season in 2026. So just remember that and keep that in perspective as things are bad. Yeah,
mine's along the same lines. My resolution for the fans is to collectively come to an understanding about the reality of where and what UCF is right now.
Oh, I love that sentence. That's eloquent.
It was just, it was bad at the end of the Gus era, but at least we've moved on. But this is a project for Scott Frost. And it was kind of going back to what we were talking about, not at the beginning, about resolutions. And if you don't try or you don't set resolutions, then you can't fail. It's more so in this case, like, if you don't set expectations that high, anything above is going to feel even better.
Yeah.
So if you think, man, if they can just go 4-8, be a little fun, go 5-7, whatever, show progress, and then they do better than that, then that's going to be awesome. It's just going to be all extra, all gravy. But it's just, this is not a situation where you can expect them to overhaul the roster, the coaching staff, the program in one off season and go from 4-8 with your best players graduating and or transferring to 9-3 or whatever, contending for the Big 12. So
Frost inherited a team that already had significant roster attrition, was a super 5th-year senior heavy team across both sides of the ball, and they didn't hire Frost till after signing day. So it's just there was no roadmap to turning this 2025 into a high level competitive season. Yeah, so it's going to be tough at moments, but I think it's going to be easier if you kind of, and us too, obviously we know that because we're preaching it, but the sooner everyone accepts that, it's going to be a process, the more I think it'll be, the less toxic I think it'll be throughout the year, which will be nice. I think that'll be enjoyable to not have so much toxicity, even though it'll fester in other ways. And we're going to have to preach it to ourselves, because I know the first time we lose, I'm going to be really upset. But the other thing, it's funny when you talk about expectations and how that changes a season. In 2019, you might remember it, UCF went 10-3. They won a bowl game. They finished in the top 25 for the 5th time in program history. And I had less fun that season, watching that season, than I did for 2016. Because they were coming off the win streak and everyone was expecting them to just reload and keep it going. And I'll always get pissed because 2019 was not a bad year in any way, shape, or form. They finished in the top 25. They won 10 games, and fans were just kind of pissed the whole time. And then you compare that to 2016, where UCF had just gone 0-12. Everyone knew they'd be better. I think everyone understood that 2015 was kind of an anomaly. But the consensus was not they were going to a bowl. It was trying to get close. And they were... Not just did they go to a bowl, they were pretty much competitive the whole year. They only had a couple games that they just really stunk in, and it was a fun season. And there were times people were mad. I remember the Houston game, they blew that one, and people were kind of pissed at the time. But it was largely just, we've got this new hotshot coach. We're fun again. The team is fun, and hey, we were horrible last year, and now we're competitive. We went to a bowl that's great. And I don't know. I'm hoping that we can recapture. Like, it's so funny how everyone's trying to recapture 2017. I'm just trying to recapture 2016. Let's do that again, where it's okay to just root for bowl eligibility and hope that the team is at least looks good and the offense is fun and you find some young players. Back then it was like Mackenzie Milton and Adrian Killens and all these guys who their names now. Back then they weren't names yet. They were just these true freshmen who we were starting to see and seemed like there might be something there. And we weren't sure. Fans wanted Milton benched. I predicted he would be benched, but it was at least. It was a transition progress, and fans had fun in that because they understood that. I'm just hoping that fans can embrace that mentality this year and not think it's just time to go win the Big 12 because Scott Frost is back.
It'd be great, like if it, this, like you said, those names weren't names yet. Like if at this time next year we're talking about like, yeah, they went 5-7 or 4-8, whatever, but they, Tavion Swint, played really well as a freshman. Yeah. We saw stuff from Stacey Gage or Day Farmer, who is only a sophomore, like stuff like that, and you can kind of be like, yeah, we're sitting here again in December without a bowl game for the second year in a row, but at least this feels better than it did after a season with a, like you said, fifth-year senior heavy team with higher expectations that fell flat and went 4-8 and left nothing. So yeah, we'll see. Scott Frost resolution. I'll go first here. This is one where it's like as if I was going to set my resolution for the new year to like lose 120 pounds. Like it's not just easy to do. It's not just something you can just, I'll just do that, because he could try his hardest and still not accomplish this resolution. But I said it as find the quarterback of the future. I don't know if he can, I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. I don't know if that's even a thing that exists anymore with the portal era, but find a quarterback, whether it's in the spring, like throughout the course of spring ball, or after spring ball during that portal window, or during the season at some point. If you're changing quarterbacks, find somebody that you can then hopefully build around and kind of drum up some of that excitement, like we were just talking about, in a quarterback too. And if it's Dylan Risk, cool. But if it's whoever, try to find that guy, even if it's a high school recruit that's not even until the next class that he signs December of 2025. But it's like that's the next guy that he's going to be hoping is his new guy. Find that guy.
Yeah, that's a really good one. That's a really, really good one, because I feel like we're falling into a trap in some ways, because I feel like I feel like I was never this focused on find your QB of the future with Gus at any point. I do wonder if we're influenced a little bit by just how Milton played out with Frost, that it's like, well, that's the trajectory. They find the star quarterback. But at the same time, that's what UCF was missing for the last 4 years. If you had to chalk down the entire 4 years of Gus and what went wrong to one issue, it was quarterback. And I think this is a fan base that is just desperate at this point for a quarterback they can actually be excited for and build around, because they just have never had that since Dylan Gabriel left. And even what's funny to look back on is even when Dylan Gabriel was here, it was kind of a weird toxic relationship where, Dylan Gabriel never really embraced the fan base. The fan base never really embraced him. So it's just kind of not been since Milton himself has the fan base really unconditionally loved the UCF quarterback.
And I'm glad you made that point, because I was supposed to make that point when I made this as a resolution, is not having that under Gus. Like, I'm tired of going into every offseason being like, what portal quarterback are they going to find? Or like, oh, they need to find a senior who's only going to have 1 year. I know that JRP had 2 years, but I was never a JRP guy. So it's like, it would be nice if they could find somebody and then not have to go, every season go portal shopping, because that gets tiresome. There's a higher chance that you're going to miss on somebody and the following season is going to be a bust. So hopefully he can find that guy, whoever it is, whether he's in high school right now or he's buried at some other school. I don't know. Neither does Scott Frost, really. So that's why this resolution's so challenging, but hopefully he can do it. Yeah.
And if, the whole portal shopping every year for a quarterback, it's a thing that some teams are doing and are having success with. And the thing is, it's a great strategy if you're Oregon. It's a great strategy if you're Penn State or Ohio State, someone who is always going to have more money than virtually everyone you're competing against and can just pay for that quarterback. When you're UCF and you are out-resourced by much of the Power Four, does not make sense to do that every offseason, because the quarterbacks are pricey.
Out-resourced and out-named. Because, I know obviously a lot of it's so much in the money and the resources at Ohio State and Penn State, but you can also say, hey, do you want to be the starting – you can go up to pretty much any quarterback at any other school and say, hey, do you want to be the Ohio State starting quarterback? Or, hey, do you want to be Penn State's quarterback, Oregon, whatever. You can use that name. UCF can't be like, hey, I know we don't have a lot of money to pay you, but you could be UCF starting quarterback. And they're going to be like,
yeah.
I'll just, go somewhere else.
And
I'll
that
go to
works
NC State.
in really damaging ways, because then it can even be a situation where UCF, there's some quarterback they love and get amped for, and they get boosters to drum up money for, and they go to some quarterback and go, hey, we're going to give you, I don't know, like $1.8 million to come be our quarterback. And that's all this money. Like, this is crazy. You got to come be our quarterback. And they go, okay. I mean, Ohio State's also offering you $1.8 million, and they're Ohio State. So no, there's just no. Right. And yeah, the flip side is, I'm not saying high school recruiting for quarterbacks is just the end all be all, because at the end of the day, UCF could go find some true freshman quarterback. Like, I don't know, let's just use Dylan Risk. Risk could be the guy this year, and he could be great. He could throw for like 29 touchdowns to 5 picks or something, be a really good player, really good building piece. And then one of the Oregon swoops in and says, we want him. And that could happen too. So there's no guarantee anywhere here, but man, you got to rethink the strategy, because the constant lily pad, not lily frog, frogs hop on lily pads, the constant lily pads of quarterbacks under Gus, it just doesn't work. And I do think you're seeing in college football, you see quarterbacks try to transfer up, but I also don't know if you see a position where guys are more willing to stay in starting spots at lower tier schools than quarterback, because it's that you are such the heart of the team. And honestly, nothing's guaranteed at quarterback. So if you're in a good situation, it doesn't always make sense to leave it. So I do think it's possible for UCF to find a guy to build around. And maybe that guy comes from the portal. Maybe he's a young guy from somewhere else. But man, we can't do the rental thing again. They might have to do it for 2025 just because of the situation. But then to your point, it's got to be about going into high school and finding that guy in the 26 class this is the guy that we're going to build around,
Which, without the resources and without the name, it can be difficult, but there is also the difference now of being able to go into high school and recruit and say, hey, this is a Power 4 quarterback position in Florida. Like, it's UCF being P4, being in the Big 12, that should also help. So it might be, whereas it would have been more difficult in the past to say, we don't have the resources, we don't have the name, and we're in the AAC, at least the Big 12 and the P4 should help a little bit. So,
and you're seeing,
I hope it works.
It's not like, I don't want fans to come away from this and be like, oh, wow, I didn't realize we're screwed. We're either going to have to go get a quarterback from the portal who sucks because we can't afford the good ones, or we'll find a young guy in the league. Other schools at UCF's level are doing this with success, whether it's Iowa State with Rocco Becht or Arizona State with Sam Levitt. Other schools that are not at the top tier of college football are successfully doing this. So it's just get more into that group. It just felt like Gus never could get out of his head. Well, it was a couple things, but I just felt like one part of it was he never could get out of his head that UCF was not an SEC program, and they couldn't just rely on year after year. Let's go in the portal and just get some big time QB. And what really sucks is on the third try, they finally did get one, and he comes in and it just was the flop of all flops. So, and that's the nature of this. I mean, even when we talk about Oregon and Ohio State, when they do this, they're taking a risk because it's just hard to know how a quarterback is going to transition to a new spot.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. What's yours for Frost?
My New Year's resolution for Scott Frost is to get Mahajer alone in a room, get in his face and say, if Pewter doesn't come back, I'm quitting. But my other more serious one for Frost is forget that the 2017 season ever happens. Just wipe it from your mind. Do not make any decisions of any kind this season ever that starts with, well, in 2017, X happened, or well, in 2017, we did X. Do not do that. And I'm now, you might be hearing that and saying, well, isn't that the whole reason we hired Scott Frost? Because he was successful here in 2017. And I think this is sort of a two-pronged thing. 2017's value to me is the mysticism of it and how much fans and even local players and everyone remember it and care about it, and how powerful that is as a recruiting tool, as a fundraising tool. Lean into it there. When Scott Frost is in a room with some UCF shareholders or their boosters, I want him to be not shutting the hell up about 2017 and how, oh, we did it then, so we're going to do it again. When you're actually in the X's and O's, when you're setting up your program, when you're figuring out how you're going to do things, when you're figuring out who goes where, what you need, what your recruiting priorities are, all of that, you can't fall into the trap of, well, in 2017 we did this, because UCF is in a different conference. They're a different type of program. College football could not be more different. And the bright side is, I think, for the most part, it seems like Frost has done that so far. I mean, like I said, they've hired a GM, they've hired player personnel guys. Frost talked about how UCF is kind of a brand new job every 4 years because it just changes so much. So it seems like he gets that. Mm-hmm. But there are some things I worry about. It's pretty obvious he'll be running the offense and calling plays. I know fans are super amped for that. I still think that's probably a bad idea because no one is really doing that, and no head coaches are really doing that anywhere in college football anymore. Pretty much everyone has given that up, and I suspect he'll have to eventually. But just don't fall into the trap of, when I was here in 2017, this worked, so we're going to do it again. Because 2017 UCF ain't nothing like 2025 UCF. Those are different freaking jobs.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a lot's changed in 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah.
So you can't lean on all of that stuff. But I do agree, like you said, like with the boosters and shareholders and like with recruits, you can't lean into it because that is part of the value of hiring him again. Because other than that, if you don't lean into it there, then why did you hire him?
Yep.
But yeah, no, that's a good point. Your resolution for Terry Mohajir.
Again, Pewter, Terry, I'm making a direct appeal to you. I'm going to pretend that you're listening to this podcast, even though I'm sure you never have. You never know. Maybe he's thrown an episode and been like, wow, these guys are stupid.
Maybe.
I will never, ever, under any circumstances, fully accept you as UCF's AD until you right the biggest wrong of your tenure and bring back the pewter uniforms. I can't. I know we've talked about this on the podcast a million times. There was literally the Twitter space he did where he goes on and just trashes the pewter uniform, says they look like practice uniforms. He hates them. And then, of course, the uniforms roll through once he's AD and they're gone. And frankly, that was so selfish of you to take your personal preference and override what a whole fan base wanted. I'm not alone in this. All of UCF Twitter and everyone, I know there's like a few of the older fans who are like, oh, we just need to be black and gold, but whatever, forget them. They don't care. They don't care about uniforms anyway. We do. Bring it back. What is wrong with you? Why would you do this? Why would you do this to me personally? Why would you make my life so much worse by getting rid of the pewter uniforms? I haven't been able to sleep in years now because they're gone. That wasn't mine though. Anyway, my resolution for Terry.
Oh, that would have been perfectly good. I think
is to figure out the rev share situation and figure it out fast for 2025.
Smart.
Seriously, if you guys, we've been talking about this on the podcast, but just as a quick refresher, rev share is what's replacing NIL starting in July. It used to be these outside collectives like the Kingdom, and it's not technically pay for play, blah, blah, blah. Fans have to foot the bill. Starting in July, assuming the House settlement is approved, which is the way things are trending, will be rev share. It will be that each athletic department, literally a percentage of their budget, up to $21 million, is paid directly to athletes. And it does not feel like UCF is in a good spot here so far, given guys they have lost to the portal, given how other programs have been operating, how other programs are still leaning on their collectives heavily. And UCF pretty publicly, they sent an email to fans basically saying, you know, the Kingdom's done, start donating to us. And they got to get this figured out. Now, I really highly doubt that they're going to be able to get up to the 21 million that a lot of schools are going to be doing, but other Big 12 programs have already made clear that they are going to be at that 21 million. And man, it's a tale as old as time, but I'm kind of sick of the whole UCF is so poor and there's nothing we can do about it. I'm not saying you have to get up to that, but you got to figure something out. I mean, that has to be priority number one for Mohajir, is just figure out rev share and figure out every single dollar currently circulating in UCF athletics that you can be putting towards that you're not right now. And I know it's a challenge because this is like, it's pretty unusual for any business, college, athletics department, or otherwise, to suddenly have a new $20 million expense pop up one off season, but they got to figure it out. I mean, there's whatever Frost can do otherwise is kind of helpless if UCF just can never pay to retain their players.
Yeah, and that's kind of that. I mean, like you said, that's got to be priority one for Mohajir. Like as much as it is for Scott Frost to show some kind of progress in year one, show that you're building towards something. Even if they don't get to that full 21 million, like you said, show progress. Like if you're building toward that, then okay, like you can at least feel a little more confident about the future and about what they'll be able to do financially in the new, reality of college football. Because if you can't get there, then you're always going to have a pretty low ceiling, which is scary because like nobody wants to hear that. So.
And I will say, it doesn't mean that it's impossible. The Athletic reported that Iowa State had like literally the lowest NIL budget in the entire Big 12. It sounds like the Athletic reported they spent $3 million on their entire football roster, which is nuts. I think UCF was like way the hell past that. So and Iowa State won 11 games and almost made it to the playoffs. So it's not that it's impossible. It's just, man, is it easier if you have money? And you really don't want to be in that situation where you're constantly playing catch up.
And I think why it works for Iowa State, or maybe it's not why, it's just maybe it's more of a narrative in my head, but they have an identity and they have a culture, and they obviously recruited very well, and they recruited to that culture and identity.
Yeah.
That's not something UCF has done very well lately, and I think it's something that they could do better under Scott Frost, because I just get the vibe, and maybe this is some of the 2017 stuff, but I get the vibe that there will be more of an identity under Frost than there was under Malzahn. Because under Malzahn, this is Gus Malzahn. Like, that was...
We talked about this. We couldn't nail it down. Like, I don't know.
It was him. He was UCF football.
Who follow UCF more closely than we do and other people in this sphere. And it was like, I couldn't tell you what the identity was. And you're right. It really did just become, this is the Gus Malzahn vanity project. And they got to get an identity back. And yeah, and I do think you're right from Iowa State. And I think that's part of it, especially with high school guys. And honestly, the Gus rosters, and I can't overly complain because I was for it at the time when they went so transfer heavy. Because in my head, and I'm sure in Gus's head, it was like, well, we're moving up to the P4. This is the fastest way to get our roster where it needs to be, is to hit the portal hard. But it just created this. And I want to say, I don't think the culture was bad under Gus. We never heard a peep of there being like serious locker room issues or anything like that. I think the team didn't quit when this year was bad. I think the culture was okay, but it did seem to create a kind of atmosphere of just everyone's kind of coming and going, right? And it probably lowers the stakes for leaving. When you look at 2017 UCF, because that's what I just told Frost not to do, so let's do it right now, is it was a bunch of guys who loved being there. And I do think when you're in a situation like Iowa State, or a place that has a coach who's been there for a while and has really cemented and established an identity of a program and a culture that players don't want to leave, they're going to be a lot more likely to turn down those big money offers because they like where they're at. And if you don't have that, and if it's a very portal heavy roster where everyone's just kind of, they weren't recruited for 2 years by the staff. They didn't come up thinking about UCF. They just sort of showed up because they thought they might play here, and then they're not playing, or there's more money elsewhere. They're going to like X-Ray Alexander. Let's talk about him for a second. He was at Idaho. He transfers into UCF. He's in for a year. Washington offers him a bunch of money. He goes to Washington. What's the allegiance to UCF? Even if Gus had stayed, who cares? It's just, that's what you got to make it really hard for players to leave. You got to make them really want to be at UCF and make it be like, man, yeah, I'd love to be making $150K more than I am here, but God, I just don't know if I'm going to leave this place. That's got to be the goal.
Yeah, and it's always gonna be tough because money is money. But
I'd leave for money in a heartbeat. I don't care.
Yeah, and so for flipping over to mine for Terry Mohajir, it's very broad, I think, but it's kind of, I think, something that I've always been a little annoyed with, and just kind of it's fun to laugh sometimes, but sometimes it's like, come on, dude, is get out of your own way and kind of be better at the small things. And again, I don't know the whole situation, so I don't even know if this is completely his fault, but the game this year where they had to shut down the food because of health violations, like stuff like that happening under your watch is never a good look. And I know there was, discourse about this at the time, like he doesn't owe anybody anything, but even when Gus leaves and you don't hear from him for a few days, people say, oh, he is, doing other stuff, you don't need to hear from him. No, like that everywhere else, the AD will give a statement, say national search is beginning immediately, whatever, even if it's just an easy statement. We didn't hear from him. Just the little things, not, this was years ago now, but not proclaiming, oh yeah, I turned down a home and home with Washington because you wanted, just the way you word things, the way you put yourself across, or the way you put UCF across. Again, another thing was the scheduling with the Big 12 where he was like, oh yeah, it's on this date. And then it was Baylor's AD that was like, UCF's not in the Big 12 yet. Just get out of your own way, and maybe don't put out the episode 3 or 4 of the athletic director podcast you were doing. Just, be better at the small things.
The podcast, Mohajir announced they're doing these AD podcast series, and they did 2, then it disappeared for a while, then it came back, then it was just gone.
Yeah, they started losing, and he stopped doing them. I
think the Mohajir era, whenever it ends, will be very interesting to dissect, because I don't know. There's a perception that we've talked about on this podcast among the fan base that it's kind of an amateur administration. I don't think that sounds harsh to say, but would you agree that that's kind of the fans' perspective of it? I'm not saying that's the way it is. I'm saying that's the perspective. And I don't think and that sort of was established early, and he's gotten better about it. But Mohajir's first year and a half here, it was like, oh my God, you put a mic in front of him and he's just starting some kind of fiasco on Twitter because he's saying something he shouldn't have, whether it's we turned down Washington to play FAU, which ended up not even being accurate or whatever. And then was that the same incident where Jason Beatty was he was at the Sentinel covering UCF at that point, and Mohajir said this on the radio and he wrote about it. Then Mohajir quote tweeted on Twitter and was like, well, that's not the full story. It's like, it's your words.
Yeah.
You said it, dude. And it was just incidents like that. And then it's things like this whole coaching search, which was just handled so badly. from a PR perspective. They never announced that Gus is gone. They post this weird statement about how they really like Gus and Christy Malzahn that's not signed by Mahajer, that doesn't say anything. They then don't say they're using a search firm. There's no kind of public communication. And I do want to attack it. I want to bring up another thing, because I've seen a few comments on Twitter of people saying, well, who cares? You're just the media. You want to stay informed. I can't overstate the degree to which people misunderstand the UCF media scene and people who cover UCF or cover any college football team. And I'm not just talking about myself. I'm talking about, because I know I'm more on the fringe of it. And we have a podcast. There's people who cover this much more seriously and are in there every day. The thing you got to understand about media covering the team is that we're not here because, oh, I just want to know stuff. And I just want to know about UCF. So I'm doing this. It's the media who cover UCF exist as a conduit between the administration and the fan base. They're there to pose and ask the questions that you want answered. They're there to get the information that you would like to have. They're there to help you know the most you can know about your team and be connected to your team, whether that's through stories about the players or what's going on with the administration. So the thing you don't understand is you think that UCF's sticking it to the media when they don't want to tell you anything about the search. They're sticking it to you, the fan base. This is information that you are owed. This is an organization that exists for you. If you're listening to this, UCF Athletics exists for you. It is an entertainment product. It's an extension of a university that you attended. They don't have the right to just not tell you what's going on with this stuff. And that's why this coaching search was just so weirdly handled. And we've let it go because they hired Frost, whatever. It's all small stuff in the grand scheme of things. But there is just this trend of, like, as you said, it's just little kind of screw ups like that. And I don't know. And I don't know what's perception and what's reality, because one thing that's reality is that Mahajer secured $90 million for UCF to build this new tower, which is a huge boon for the program and for the university. And it's just a massive, massive win, and probably one of the biggest wins for an AD ever. And it's not like, and fundraising, as far as we know, because of course all these numbers aren't public, is better than it was under Danny White, better than it's really been for any time at UCF. So there have been a lot of wins, but there's just this like perception issue. It feels like Mahajer's never really been quite able to get around. And so I didn't mean to take your resolution and make it super serious, but no, it is weird and kind of frustrating that stuff like that just keeps happening.
And that's kind of what the resolution boils down to, is that I think in a lot of ways he's done a pretty good job. Like he's done some really good things, but a lot of it comes down to perception of him and perception of the administration. And it's just been because of little things and the way that things are ran, or just the way things come across. It's like, what was I said this to you a long time ago. I don't even remember what it was about, but it was like, they don't understand optics, it feels like sometimes. No. And that's part of the problem. That's part of understanding and bettering yourself with the small things. And if they can do that, then I think, it'll change perception of him as an AD a lot. So
we'll also, the other thing just on the Mahajer era is we're now up to 2 of his hires are gone under bad circumstances. Gus Malzahn leaving when we all knew he was probably going to get fired if they could figure out the money, and Jenny Maurer getting fired. So not exactly Danny White's coaching track record, but I don't know. Like I said, the Mahajer era is just, it's been a weird one because a lot of good things have happened, but there's just been a lot of gaffes. I don't know what else to call them. Yeah.
All right. The resolutions for ourselves. Did I go first? Yeah. Okay. You went first on Mahajer, so I'll talk mine. This is kind of lazy, but I don't even think it's that lazy because that's something I really want to do. I'm running it back with one. I don't even know if I did it last year or the year before, but I want to attend 5 non-football UCF sporting events this year because I didn't do a very good job of it last year, and I want to be better at it this year.
Yeah, and I suffered as a result. One of the worst things that ever happened to me was you moving to Tampa. I'm still really mad at you about that.
That sucks, man. But but no, I don't. I think I'm giving myself like a good couple chances. Like I want to make it. I said the other day to you, like I want to make it to at least 1 basketball game, but I'd like to do 2 this year. I did get a ticket for one of the days that UCF softball is playing in Clearwater, so that'll be nice. Want to make it back for baseball, maybe make it to the complex for a softball game at UCF. So trying to get the 5. And then obviously I don't even think we didn't go to any volleyball I guess volleyball is bad this year, but we didn't go to volleyball or soccer.
Did we not go to a volleyball game this year?
I don't think we did.
I know we didn't go to soccer.
Yeah.
Okay. God, was that really a year ago already? The last volleyball game? Okay.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So that's mine. Go to 5 non-football events because I don't know. I have season tickets. I'll be at most of the football games. This year was a little bit different in that way because I got sick for one of them. There was a hurricane for another one. So
excuses.
5 non-football ones this coming year.
I hope that happens for my sake.
Yeah.
Even though
I'm knocking out 2 of them without you.
I was literally, the Clearwater ones are useless to me, but have fun.
Yeah. Thank you. Go ahead, yours.
My personal New Year's resolution, which I will probably fail at for 2025, is to stop caring what other people think about UCF's uniforms. And I think what this boils down to
so quickly.
Oh, I know. And this sounds like a joke, but it's so serious, is I just love all the uniform stuff with UCF. I've loved it for years. I've always been a big uniform guy while outside UCF, and they always had like the blandest, most basic uniforms my whole life. And starting in 2016, they've worn such cool stuff. And unfortunately, we have a very stupid, very spoiled fan base who doesn't understand how cool the stuff UCF is, and doesn't understand how unusual it is compared to all the other teams in college football and how much cool stuff UCF does and the effort they put in. And I've decided that I'm going to stop letting you guys take away my joy. I'm just going to like it. And I know that some of you will be dumb about it and tweet things that are stupid, and I'll get mad at you, but I'm going to try to stop being mad at you and just accept that you're wrong. And it's okay. Not everyone can have the correct opinion. That's why they're called opinions, because some people are just wrong. Don't think that's why they're called opinions, but that's my definition of it. And
you went way too bold with this resolution. You are not doing that.
I'm going to really try, because where it really started bugging me this year was like, the fan base was just getting mad over like objectively good uniforms, and they were, and it's because what happens, and this has been, I've taught this before. It's something that I've noticed over the years, is when the team is good, the uniforms are great. And when the team is bad, the uniforms suck. And for someone like me who just really cares about the uniforms and just wants to like talk about them, that is so infuriating that I have to like wait to see if the team is good to learn if you're going to think a uniform was good or not. So yeah. I'm going to try to just, I don't know how I'm going to handle this. I might just need to like, just not, right? Like maybe just stop tweeting about the uniforms, like just let it be my thing and I'll care about them on my own.
I don't know if you can do that either. You love tweeting about the uniforms.
I didn't love it this year. Because every time I did, I would be like, wow, look at this. Like the freaking
turn off replies to all your uniform tweets.
The BYU game, they wear the Lance logo for the first time since we're kids on these gold helmets, these new gold helmets, which are awesome. Mm-hmm. And they wear it with night mode and it matches the gold numbers and it looks great. And I'm like, oh, it looks awesome. And everyone's just like, it looks terrible. Why aren't they wearing what they wore when they were good in 2017? And it just drives me nuts, man. They wore a freaking gold face mask, Bailey. They wore a gold face mask, and fans are in my mentions like, it doesn't match the decal. Do you know why it doesn't perfectly match the decal? Because a freaking chrome sticker and the texture of a face mask are different freaking objects. This is the part of UCF tour that drives me the most insane, is it's the people who say, why don't the colors perfectly match on different things? Because they're different objects. It's not possible. That's like science. That's chemistry. I don't get it. I've already failed.
So I was just about to ask you. So now that you said all that and got a little upset, I don't know if you were angry, but it sounded like you were caring what other people were saying. It's not the new year yet. So starting now.
Do you know what that was? That was me getting it all out of my system.
Getting it all out?
Now we're good.
Starting now. From now on.
I don't care anymore.
Care about what other people think about UCS uniforms.
Me famously not caring what others think should be no problem at all.
Good luck. That was fun. I don't have any football news again. We covered the transfer additions. No coaching news from what we've seen. So hopefully some more stuff to talk about next week. Game of the week. They're back to playing basketball again after a week off last week. UCF men's basketball and UCF women's basketball into conference play now. Men's basketball starts their conference schedule on Tuesday, but the game of the week is Sunday when UCF returns to Edition Financial Arena. They are 9-2. They will be hosting number 7 Kansas, who is also 9-2. Sunday at 4:00. Obviously, everybody remembers what happens when Kansas came to UCF last year. Would love to see it happen again. It would just be objectively funny, but it would also be really cool, and it would be really good for UCF's season and any potential tournament prospects. So we'll see how everything plays out. They're playing at Texas Tech to start on Tuesday, and then they come back home to play Kansas. So we'll see. But tweet of the week.
Tweet of the week. We've hit a lot of our staples on this episode. We've hit bring back Peter uniforms. We've hit why does Mahajer say things. We've hit uniform rant. We're hit a lot on here. So I really at this point have to take us to a Mikey Keene tweet to just keep the vibes going of things that only we care about. That someone who was covering Michigan tweeted this. They asked Wink Martindale, Michigan's defensive coordinator, about Mikey Keene because he's going to Michigan. And Michigan faced Fresno State this season. So that was a fair question asked the defensive coordinator. He replied, quote, "I call him broke man's Kyler Murray." Let's play a game. Mm-hmm. Was that an insult or was that a compliment? Where are we landing?
Both. Nah, not both. Compliment, I think.
It's a compliment?
Hopefully.
I think I don't know why, but in my head,
I don't even get the comparison, though.
Worse than poor man's Kyler Murray. Like, broke man's Kyler Murray sounds like even a level lower than poor man's Kyler Murray. I also don't think it's a good comparison.
Yeah, I was like, when has Mikey Keene ever played like Kyler Murray?
I don't know. Does Mikey Keene even play Call of Duty?
I don't know. You'd have to ask him.
Whenever
we inevitably eventually have him on the podcast as a UCF legend, we'll have to ask him if he plays Call of Duty, and we'll have to ask him if he thinks he plays like Kyler Murray. I can't figure out. I feel like my brain breaks when I try to figure out if that was supposed to be a compliment or if it was supposed to be. I feel like it was definitely supposed to be a compliment, right? Because the defensive coordinator is not going to trash his quarterback. And because, like, especially college Kyler Murray, like, won a Heisman Trophy. And, like, yeah, you're not going to say Mikey Keene is a Heisman caliber quarterback, but he, I guess, was reminded of Kyler Murray in some way. I don't know. That's an interesting one there.
Well, I feel like
it's also Wink
someone
Martindale,
described the Pegasus podcast to me and said it's like a broke man's Sons of UCF. I feel like I wouldn't be okay with that comment. So
I'd shut down the podcast. It'd be over.
It's probably an insult. I feel like it's probably an insult.
I don't know. It's also Wink Martindale, though. Like, he's been around forever, and he's got his way of saying things, and I don't know. He's just funny. Wink Martindale. What a name, too.
Now I need Mikey Keene's first Michigan access. The first question would be, what do you think of Wink Martindale calling you a broke man's Kyler?
And then he's just like, I think he's a broke man's, I don't know. He just named somebody else.
Broke man's Nick Saban.
I don't know. Yeah, make another comparison that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good. I'm sure he'll do that. Man, Mikey Keene at Michigan.
It's going to be it'll be either fun or he won't play and it'll be terrible for me. It's going to be one of those two things. So
I don't care at this point. Like, him, even like Michigan bringing him in validates my opinions.
It's objectively, like, the world where he starts for Michigan is objectively going to be hilarious for our purposes.
I do really think he'll start maybe the year, and then Bryce Underwood will play like by week 3.
This is how just blind I am to my love of Mikey Keene, because I'm like, oh yeah, give Mikey the job. Like, give him the job. He won't,
I dare you.
You think that's your strategy? Do it. He will not lose that job.
Well, Michigan always starts off with, like, I don't know. It always ends up they get to week 8 and it's like who have they played? So I don't know. Was that last? I don't know. We don't need to talk about it. It doesn't matter. But it does kind of for this podcast with Mikey Keene there. So I don't know. What are we going to name it? What are we going to do the new segment? Mikey Keene.
Mikey's Michigan Minute.
The Michigan Minute. Mikey's Michigan Minute. There we go.
Triple M. Yep.
Work on it. Cool. All right. Happy New Year. Happy 250th episode. Here's a, obligatory shot of the champagne again. I have champagne that I'm not opening. This has been fun. 250 episodes is great. I really still am in awe of the fact that people listen to us and like us. And I was like not pulled aside, but multiple people came up to me this year at UCF games. Were like, "Are you Bailey from the Pegasus Podcast?" And I was like, I don't think that I should be recognizable for anyone, but it's cool. It's, I really appreciate everybody who's listened, who's reached out, and who continues to support us, because we do enjoy having, this hour or so every week to talk about UCF, just because we're friends and we do it anyway. But having people also be a part of it is fun. So anything you'd like to say in closing?
No, I think that, no, I'm kidding. I do think if, this is where my personalities are different, because if someone were to come up to me and say, "Are you Christian Simmons from the Pegasus Podcast?" I would say no and then walk away. But we joke around a lot. Just can't say enough about how much it means to all y'all who listen to us every week. It's been a very fun ride. We're going to keep doing it for the rest of time, so we're not going anywhere. We're going to be in our 80s and still here talking about this, but really just appreciate you all so much. Thank you for sticking with us as we've been on this journey, and we're now somehow on to our third head coach since we started this podcast, even though Josh Heupel only got 2 episodes in. So fun times ahead.
Yep, absolutely. We'll be back in 2025 next week with episode 251, barrel toward our fourth birthday, and I guess 500 episodes, if that's really the next milestone. Until then, you can find us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCA Simmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. Thank you guys so much for being with us. Happy New Year. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.